Hi, everyone. Julia here, recording this February 27th, 2024. And I have the amazing John Avery with me today. And he's been with the Mace Energy Method from the beginning. And as people from my channel know, I discovered the Mace Energy Method a couple of months ago via Jerry Marzinski. And anyone who's been working with psychotic patients for over 40 years comes up and says, oh, well, this stuff works like magic. It works on everything, even psychotics, as long as they're not too far gone. Then you pay attention. And then, you do some more research and you realize, wow, it's been around quite a long time and they have a lot of empirical data to support just amazing transformations in people's lives. And one of the coolest things, it can work with children. So yeah, and I realized, and I've heard that you've done a lot with children yourself. So that's really just gigantic. So go ahead and just give us your background with John Mace and how you just got to where you are now, if you don't mind.
Well, John Mace and I studied counselling in about the mid-60s, about 1966. And we were friends because of that. And every time we met over the years, we said to John would say, look, we can fix people up, but the same problem keeps coming back. And it was a system we used long before the Mace method. And he said, something's missing, we've got to find it. So him and I, we more or less made it a quest to find what was missing. And in about 96, he went to America for 5 or 6 months studying another system, and he got quite excited about it when he came home. So I packed up and went over to Dallas, Texas for about 3 months, and so how this happened, I came home and I traveled from the east coast of Australia to the west, which is a very big trip, about 4,000 kilometers. And incidentally, and during that time, I was running some new processes on John, which he was not aware of. Something new had come up. And suddenly he had a realization that he said, and then suddenly he opened his eyes and he said, I found the problem. I found what's wrong. Let me do this on you. And he quickly devised a process from what he realized, and it worked very good on me too. And that's where it came from. I was there when John found what he calls the pot at the end of the pot of gold at the end of his rainbow. So that's how it started in about 96, 97. And from that, the Mace method was created. And I came back to the East Coast, and John, we stayed in touch, and we slowly put a course together, and then we started training people, and after a couple of years, but it's been refined and everything since then. But there was one basic thing that John found, and that's the part about your mind, what it actually does. It doesn't do the thinking. It's just the part of you that creates mental image pictures when you have your eyes closed and you're thinking about things, whether you're dreaming, daydreaming, or just with your eyes closed thinking about things. So that's that part. Okay.
Yeah. And so what years were you in the Dallas area?
Well, that was in 1996.
Oh, that's funny, because that's when I moved to Dallas that year too. I moved to the Dallas area that year too.
Yeah, it was 96, 97, I think it was. And I did live in Dallas from 1970 to about 1973. And that was another thing that I was doing. But I run a very effective communication course, and I had I was up in Canada working and running my course and doing some processing, and it was too cold for me, so I went down to Dallas, and somebody offered me a job there. So that's how I finished up in Dallas.
So you've been in the trying to help people and counsel people and coach people for decades now, right? And you've come through with some epiphany, so to speak, like you have those 3 articles that you sent me. And one of them is about, divorce and how you can really take care for the kids, no matter even if you have a divorce. You want to talk about that one a little bit?
Yes, well, I just, like, over the years, I'd seen this happening, and I actually, I've got to be honest, I experienced a little bit of this personally. I never met my real father until I was nearly 60 years old. And my mother ran him down to me all my life, how bad he was. And any time I did anything that didn't please her, she'd say to me, you're like your father. And I'd never met him. So imagine a young boy trying to not be like somebody he'd never met. So when this data came and we found that we could help people, that was I realized that I thought that I had something that I could share with people that would be valuable for them. And if they get divorced, that's okay, if they have to, but don't injure the children in the process, because they'll have to pay the price anyway. Okay. Yes.
Right. And so many parents do that same kind of thing because they have their negative identities toward their ex, and then they share that with their children, and that's just, yeah. And that's what's so cool, that Mace Energy Method will work with children, so before they have children they'll be healed, and it'll just stop this whole cycle. In one generation it could be ended with the children having access to this. And I know you worked in some of the Steiner schools, and you did a lot of work with children, right?
Yeah, well, that's how the children, like John hadn't done any of that. I was on the East Coast, and I don't know, but as I said, I did 2 teachers from a Steiner school, and they were thrilled with the results for themselves. But then they called me one day and said, look, we've got a few children here that as much as we try, we can't help them. Do you think you could help them? And I said, I haven't thought about it. Leave it to me. So I thought about it, and I thought, well, we can't run the whole process we do on an adult. They wouldn't understand. So finally, I said to them, yes, I'd like to. If the children come and they come with their mother, they have to come with their mother or grandmother or one somebody in their family, and I'll have a talk to them. And so then we slowly put a process together handling children, and I found that they were quite simple to handle. But the things that you handle on them, if you don't clear them, they would carry them forward in their life. Would you like me to give you one quick example?
Please.
Yeah, well, this is like I had a gentleman brought a little girl that was having trouble. So with the children, I usually sit down and get into rapport with them, and John Mace invented the idea, and he said what he said to children. This was his part of it, but it was, and you say to the children, there's only one difference between you and me. Can you guess what it is? And of course they tried to guess, and I said, well, my body's just a bit bigger and a bit older than yours, but I'm not going to be talking to your body. I'm going to be talking to you. You and I are going to have a nice talk. And immediately you see them relax when you do that. And it's like creating rapport with a child is the most important part to start with, because once you do that, they'll follow anything you ask them to do nicely. So anyway, this little girl came, and I go through a list. I say, do you like going to school? How do you get on at school? We're looking for areas where they've had a problem, as you know, where they don't feel good. And I'm watching their indicators when I'm talking to them. And how do you get on at school? Do you like your teacher? Yes. Do you have any trouble with children at school? No. How do you get on with your mum? Oh, very good. How do you get on with your dad? I said to this little 7-year-old, and she actually almost went into like a reaction. She said, "Oh, I'm very frightened of my dad." And I said, "Oh, well, here's the things." So after a little bit of telling her what to do, and talking about feelings, I got her to close her eyes, and we ran the process, and we handled 2 feelings to do with her father. And she brightened. I could see her brighten right up after that. So I said to you, when you think about your father right now, how do you feel? She looked at me, Julia, like I was quite stupid. She said, "I love my dad." She didn't say, "Can't you? What are you talking about?" It was like I was talking to 2 different little girls. That took about 20, 25 minutes, the whole process. And what that'd do for her life going forward, that's why I love handling children. Okay?
Yeah, that is just phenomenal and truly miraculous. And yeah, and just the fact that people can heal their life traumas, or, I love the whole notion. Anything you don't like about yourself, you can change.
Oh,
That's
exactly.
cool.
Oh, that's a beautiful way of saying it. Well done. Yeah, that's it. And that sort of thing. And like, you can't introduce the whole process to children, but if I'm having trouble with some particular child that doesn't seem to be getting anywhere, I just ask them, and you'll understand this because you're training. I say to them, when you're upset, do you often say something to yourself? "Oh, yes." So what do you say? And they might say, "I'm a bad person," or "I'm this," or "I'm no good," or something. And then, as you know, from that, we can get them to delete the feeling connected to that. And now I could sit here for another hour telling you about children. There is one more I am going to share. This was very early on in the process. Like, I never used to take children into the office. It was a bit too confronting. I had an office at that time. I'd sit them at the kitchen, on the other side of the kitchen table, give them a glass of water, and get to talk to them. And this little boy's mother and father had divorced, and he was he was very upset about it. Angry and sad, I think, were his feelings. So we ran those feelings, and once again he brightened up. So then, in the old days, I'd say to him, I said, "Right now, can you say to me, I feel angry and sad?" And he stood up at the other side of the table, and he said, "John, can't you see me? I'm not sad and angry anymore. I'm very happy." And he virtually jumped all over me, if you follow me. So I'm very careful now with children after that. Okay.
Yeah, and that's just amazing because kids are so authentic and genuine. They're not faking it at all. That result is there. You can't deny it. You cannot deny it. And, you're
Yes.
talking about handling emotions. You want to explain how that works a little more? Just how the Mace Energy Method works, where you don't have to relive trauma, because sometimes, and often, because if trauma is really bad, we don't remember it anyway, but we do have the residual feelings from it. And that's what's so powerful about Mace Energy Method, is you don't even have to locate the exact trauma.
No. Well, we do locate the trauma, but what we explain to people is that we don't need to know any of their private business or anything embarrassing. It's not necessary. But when you get to the part where we've got a question that we ask, and I'm not going to ask it and trigger people, but we've got a question to ask that gets them and we explain to them, the only part of an upset that somebody has is important. The only part that comes forward with them in life is the feeling. From that, the upset. You know what I mean? And when they get the feeling, because then they're remembering what happened and that sort of thing. And an old example I used is that if I had a good stepfather, but if I had a father that yelled and screamed at me, I could be walking up the street with you having a good time, and somebody yelled and screamed on the other side of the street. That would trigger me. I'd be back in that feeling. So the only part of an upset and anything that goes wrong in life is the feeling. If you've had a failure or anything that's dropped you, you're feeling from feeling good to bad suddenly. That's the only part that comes forward with you. So we get their attention on an upset, but then all we want to know is, you go to the worst moment in that upset. We've got a direction we do, and they get to the worst moment and find out whether we're, and then we just want to find out what's the overwhelming feeling. What are you feeling there? And they'll hand it to you without the slightest bit of a problem, because they sit there and they've probably been having it for years. So then it's just a matter of handling the feeling, you know, and of course with the ruin too, when you have a big upset, you often decide something. You know, when something goes wrong, you make a decision about yourself at that minute, that like that I'm no good, or I'm a failure, or if somebody's broken up with their best girl, or that I'll never be happy again. And that feeling and that decision is what John Mace referred to as a person's ruin. And once again, the question that we use on the process always gets right to the bottom of things. And that feeling can be taken forward through in life, and that decision can cause a lot more problems. But the beautiful part of the Mace method, in my opinion, is that when you handle that early one and take all the feelings away from that and get rid of that and handle it with the Mace method, it's the example I've used all my life. It's like deleting a virus from a computer, and then the computer works. Delete the feeling from a person, and they get back to being themselves. And then they're in control of their own. And they might think about that problem they had, but it won't have any effect on them ever again. You know, sometimes they'll just have a giggle about it and say, who cares? You know, and it'll just fade away. So does that answer your question, love?
Right. And I know most people are saying, that sounds too good to be true. What do you say to that?
Oh, I've finished the process when someone's had some terrible, you know, decision about themselves, like I'll never be happy again. And I'll say, can you say that to me and convince me that that's true right now? And they say, no, I can't. They said, but it can't be that simple. I said, I'm very sorry, but it is. we make a joke of it. I said, if you can't say it, it's gone. Do you want me to get it back for you? And they say, oh, no, it's okay. So, no, I had a lot of experience. Go on.
Yeah, because the negative emotions and negative feelings are something we actually created in this moment of trauma, and we resisted it. So we created that bridge, that energy bridge with it. And so since we create it, we can eliminate it. We can discreate it. We have that power. That's what you and John discovered. And y'all found a really simple process to do it, just using our mind to do what it's meant to do and create mental pictures of whatever we, the spiritual energy being, focus our attention on. So it's really cool how he brought, and that's what Jerry's whole premise is. Hey, schizophrenia is not chemical imbalances. You know, it's an energy issue. It has to be treated with energy medicine. And so that's why he's having so much success in, psychiatry and psychology compared to what they keep trying and having horrible results. Things get worse and worse and worse. The suicide rate keeps going up. So yeah, this is huge. And I think Jerry's really bringing out the big wave so it can really get out to people. So, and I don't know how you and Cherie and the people who have been with it so long have had so much patience, but I know you've just been excited. How old are you now, John? If you don't mind answering, because I think that's a testament to Mace Energy Method.
Am I allowed to have a little joke?
Of course.
No, I'm going to tell you how old I am, but I've been doing a lot of ballroom dancing. And when the ladies asked me, I said, oh, look, I'm sorry, I've got a little bit of Alzheimer's I've forgotten. but my age is, I'm 92. I'm going to be 93 in a couple of months.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's just, right there. And John Mace lived in his 90s. And, when you're just so motivated and you have so much purpose and you have so much good to share, you just keep going and going, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I studied the counseling and then I went to England and did a big course in the 60s, before I went, somebody helped me. And I was a tradesman. I had my own retail shops, to be honest. And somebody helped me, and I remember when I walked out that day, I said, that was so good. I've got to learn how to do this. It's more like I found what I should have been doing in life. And I said, this is what I've got, that's why I went to England and trained. The system was quite good, but not perfect, and it wasn't permanent. Like the Mace method, when you handle a feeling properly and those decisions and things that people have made and they're gone, that's the end of it for them. And you were talking a little bit a while ago about, which I'm just recalling now, you were saying like the mental image pictures that you get when you're having a Mace session, really all it is, see, a negative decision that you've made or a bad feeling that you're resisting, if you're resisting, you're unconsciously giving it energy all the time. Every time it comes back and you have your attention on it, and you even to hold something away, I even do that to clients, to hold that away, it takes a bit of energy to hold it away, and you're giving energy to it, and it gets your energy, it gets bigger in life and you get smaller. Now, when the Mace method process is run, and when the picture's only showing you where the negative energy is, because there's no energy that you can actually see, you can only feel it. That's electricity, heat, cold, all of those things. You can't see them, but you can feel them. And of course, the beautiful part of the Mace method to me is that when you're this one that's got a lot of your energy, when you do the process and the picture slowly fades or disappears completely, all that energy that was tied up in that negative feeling or negative decision comes back to you. It's my example is it's like getting money back from a very bad investment you've made, and you can start again. How do you like that?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would appreciate that.
Well, that's
So,
exactly,
yeah.
that's the best analogy. I like to use analogies for clients because you're introducing something to them very new. And I found them in the early days, I found them, very, very helpful. And that's the way I see it. And you get that energy back, and that's the real you. And then you get on with your life. So the only reason the picture is because you've got all your attention on that energy, and then your mind will create some picture to represent that. That's why the pictures could be just about anything. Sometimes they're rational, sometimes they're not. Sometimes, doesn't matter what they are. Once they're there, you've got your attention on the energy, and then you can deal with it. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And I know one of the things, like in relationship repair and Mace Energy Method, we have to own our responsibility in our life. And we have to realize when we're having issues with other people that it has to do with negative identities we created. Can you go into more of that?
Yep. Well, we do create, like, and the beautiful part to me is every time we talk about relationships, to me, is that, like, if somebody comes to you and they're having trouble with somebody, they've been having a fight, when you handle all of their stuff, all of their identities on that, you handle their own identity to do with that and how they picture the other person. The magic part is that you don't often have to go and handle the other person. Example, I had a young lady come to me once, it would have been about June or July, and we did her ruin and did her relationship, and she was very thrilled, and I checked up with her a week later and she was wrapped. And then just after Christmas, the next year, I got a call from her. I said, "Oh, how you been doing? Are you having a bit?" I thought she had a bit of a problem. I told her if she had a problem to come back. She said, no, I've been down. She's traveled from the Gold Coast, which is Queensland, right down to New South Wales, 1,000 kilometres or more. She said, I've been down and stayed over Christmas with my mother. This is the first year for about 10 years we haven't fought for the whole time over Christmas. She said, we never had a single problem. She had handled her relationship problem until she met her mother. She hadn't realized that the identities were gone. And we never heard of her mother, never talked to her mother. It was all to do with she handled her side, and the problems disappeared. It takes two to have an argument, Julia. Okay.
Yep. That's so true. And that's the thing, you know, Mace Energy Method is miraculous. And, you know, y'all have so much empirical data out there to support that. But the person has to want to change. And if someone thinks they're okay and it's everything else out there and everyone else out there that's causing them problems, then there's really nothing Mace Energy Method can do for those people, correct?
Exactly. There was one little thing that I'd had all my life, you know, that John Mace loved. I'm going to show you. I was going to say, when you point the finger at somebody, what they're doing this and they're doing that, it's a very good idea to look where the other three fingers are pointing. You understand?
Yeah, right. And I think that's another powerful thing about Mace Energy Method, because the person has to be to that point in their awareness to where they know that they're responsible. So, you know, it's not just for the average person on the street. You can't just go do Mace Energy Method with just anyone and it be effective, because they have to be to that point where they're taking responsibility, because everything that happens to us in life is our responsibility. And that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people.
Yeah, but like you can't actually tell them that. We've just got to guide them to look at it until they realize it themselves. You know what I mean? Because with the relationship repair, as you know, when we get them to look at their identity that feels bad when they're around the other person, that you get them to list all their different traits of how they feel this way and that way and this way, and they might have said the other person was a very cruel, and suddenly one day, about 10 years ago now, but I was going down the list with somebody, and I suddenly realized, I said, by the way, you've probably read this, I said, but by the way, when you're around this person, you've been having trouble with them, and you're around this other person, you know, sometimes to handle their problem, you have to be a bit like them to handle it. By the way, have you ever had anything a bit similar, like to this cruel person? Oh, yes, I have. Other people, like you said about responsibility, when you're listing down all the feelings, and they'll actually say, you know, oh, they're cruel. Oh, boy, you know, I've actually been a bit that way and I shouldn't be. And they take responsibility. And so that relationship is a really beautiful handling. It has a far-reaching effects on the person and that sort of thing. I can give you so many examples. Are you happy with these examples?
I love them. Keep going.
Yeah, well,
if you have any more.
I had a businessman that had a very, very stressful job, and he became a client and I looked after him, but he'd often this is worth telling you too. He'd often call up and he said, "Oh, I think I've been triggered again," and he said, "Can we meet about 1 o'clock?" And he used to walk from his office down to a park where there was a bush hanging over a little seat in the park, and he'd back into this bush and he'd have a session that only take about 15 minutes. And in the old days, I'd just write down 15 minutes, and every time it got to an hour or so, I'd send him a bill and he'd pay me. And he would get better. So he used to do it on his phone, by the way, too, on Skype. Well, we never used to use Zoom in the old days. And but at any rate, he got divorced, and he finally, and this is the one about responsibility. He had about an 18 or 19-year-old son, and the son got a new stepmother. And I did some work on the son, and he was doing good, but then he rang up and he was having trouble with his stepmother. So now that you understand feelings, I ran probably 6 or 7 feelings that he had when he thought about the stepmother, and he wasn't getting better. And this is how you realize things. And I remember telling John about this. And when I ever came up with anything new, he said, "Well done," he said, "because I can't think of everything." But however, this boy was 7 or 8 feelings and he wasn't getting better. And I said, so I suddenly looked at it and I said, "Look, just by the way," and I didn't do it accusingly or didn't evaluate for him. I said, "By the way, this problem you keep having with your stepmother, is there any little part of it that you might be responsible for?" He said, "Oh, heck yes." I said, "Close your eyes." We closed our eyes and ran the feeling, and he was 100%. And I've never heard from him since, by the way. He's doing fine. that was a long time ago. He'd be about 30 now. But these are the experiences that I've had, and it's taught me, the different ways to look at things. And you mustn't tell a client they've got a problem, but there's questions you can ask that will, get them to have a look, any little part. If he'd have said no, well, that would have been the end of it. He said, oh, heck yes, he said. I said, close your eyes. And one more feeling, and he was 100% better. Very satisfying, Julia. Thank you.
Right. And that's because you had to get to that, what y'all refer to as Mace Energy Method refers to as the ruin, right? That core resisted feeling, because you get all these other ones that come out of that.
Exactly.
Once you tap into that one, then it takes care of so many other things. And that's what's so phenomenal. You don't have to get to each and every one necessarily.
See, once people realize those things, any part you're responsible for, it'll make them more responsible for the rest of their life. Because if they're having a problem, they'll think about that and they said, oh, yeah, I don't need to be doing that. This is my part of the problem, no, it's been a lot of fun, been lots and lots of fun.
Right. It seems like it develops people's self-awareness to a really, large degree. And that's so important. If you want to grow and heal, you have to have honest self-awareness. And that's where Mace Energy Method really is a gentle way to bring that about for people. And it has the result instantly once they can get there.
It's exactly. It brings out the very best in them. All of a sudden, all their abilities and everything come to the front when all the negative's gone and they get all their energy back. Like, I have a lady, I'm trying to think, it would have been back around about 2002 or 3, I worked with a lady, and she had an accounting business a long way from here. I used to go down to this country area, and a friend of mine there would always have 4 or 5 clients for me in a week, and I'd work a little bit on her farm. She was a single lady. I'd work on her farm and do a few jobs for her. But anyway, this lady came, and she had a very, very negative decision about herself. And ever since she's handled that, she's given me lots of things. She's on Facebook all the time. Her business has grown she thought she was not important. And ever since she got rid of that, her whole life changed. And she's got a great big business on Facebook now, and she does lectures to a whole lot of people, and her business has just turned into a massive big business. And there was a couple of other things, like I might be going a bit of ahead of myself here. You're not aware of the productivity procedure yet, are you? Or are you?
I don't think so. Mm-mm.
Now, well, there's a process when people. Sorry, there's a process that we do for people when they're having trouble, and she used to procrastinate a lot too. And we've got and that causes a lot of problems in life. And that got handled for her too. And like she's just raved about it ever since, and her business has just gone. She said she can get production done and get things done she couldn't do before. And just very simply, because now I've covered it in case somebody else is listening to this, every single thing we do in life, whether I'm just going to have a drink of water or I'm building a new house, it follows the same path. We must make a decision what we're going to do. We must get it started, and we must persist at it, and then we must complete it. And very simply, like some people in life are very, very good at making decisions, and they have no trouble about doing it. But other people could have a lot of problems making decisions. They could procrastinate and think about it, and am I doing the right thing? And, get into a whole muddle. And once again, other people are very good at getting started in the morning and getting going. Other people have a lot of trouble. So there's strong and weak and the same with persistence. Some people can persist, and other people, if things get a little bit tough in life, they give up immediately, but other people just hang in there and, get it done. And the same thing with completing things. When you complete things, that's when you get your satisfaction out of life. And that's very powerful, like realizing and getting things completed and finishing with them. You take them out of you. But like, as a quick example, people that don't, people that have a lot of things that they haven't done hanging around their neck, all of those things have got a little bit of their attention. And to that degree, they haven't got if like a truck driver with that problem is very dangerous, because he hasn't got his mind on the job. Because when you leave things undone, you think about it, every time your attention keeps going back to things you haven't done instead of been doing what you're doing. But the beautiful part about this, when the Mace method, energy method, is used on all those four things, well, then the people gets all that energy comes back to them and they complete things. Because have you ever, can I ask you one question that I ask everyone? Have you ever had one of those days when you finished a whole lot of little jobs that have been hanging around, please?
Yeah, you feel great. Even, just cleaning your house, you can sit down and you just feel so much better. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, you've had your attention on it that needs doing. Once you do it, the attention it all comes back to you, and that's your beautiful energy. That's the energy we're talking about in the Mace method. It's like having the whole of you back to do things. And that's what happened to that lady with the beautiful business. We handled her procrastination, and then she just started doing it. She had all the good ideas. She's absolutely brilliant. And her business just went massively. So I've had hundreds of examples of people that were having trouble with things and that sort of thing. Oh, we can go on with a lot of things, Julius, like...
yeah, so not only can the Mace Energy Method make you happy, it can also make you rich.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, it's just totally life-changing. And most people only, one or two sessions, I hear, is pretty much the thing. But most people, one session is sufficient, from what I understand.
Yes, yeah, I can honestly tell you that John Mace, at one time, he tried to give all this information to a university in Perth, and he spoke to a whole group of people about the results we've been getting. And a psychologist or a psychiatrist stood up, that's impossible, it's not true. And John was a captain of a seaboat, and like he's used to running the show. And his answer to the man that said it will never work, he said, try and prove I'm wrong. And that's the only answer John gave him. But so it's like, it's like people didn't want to, he tried to hand it, or he didn't want money, he wanted to hand it over, the data, to the university in Perth, but in West Australia. But they wanted to be critical. It's not, they couldn't realize, like Jerry did. Jerry realized that it worked, but they couldn't accept it. So that's why it's taken a while, but it's happening now. Cherie's so busy. She's unbelievable. She's doing a beautiful job. She was one of my early trainees. I trained her about 2002, I think it was. And yes, there's so many things to talk about, like people smoking. You did, that's what I was going to say. Earlier on, you said, people have to want to. And we realized if somebody comes to me and wants to give up smoking, a client who might have had a session, then they realize they can get rid of their smoking or gambling or taking drugs. And if they come to me with smoking, I say, before we start, I need to know, why do you want to give up your smoke? And he said, my wife doesn't like it. One man, I remember him. I said, is there any other reason you want to go? No, he said, it just annoys her. And I said, look, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. I said, you've got to want to do it for you. Go and have a little break for a little while, but you're always welcome to come back. And it was a month or two, he rang back. He said, look, I've got to give it up. It's bad for my health. I said, come on down. And, 3/4 of an hour later, his smoking was finished. And the same with gambling. I love talking about examples. These things were so thrilling. A lady came who was going, we have lots of clubs in Australia, like an RSL club, and people go there and play Keno. I don't know if you have Keno in America or where you were. And they have the poker machines. This lady had lost $46,000 gambling on the poker machines. And she wanted to give up the gambling. So we did her whole session for her, and then handle the gambling, the feelings connected to gambling. And she rang me back about a week later, which I do for a follow-up. As you know, we follow people up to make sure they're 100%. And I said, how are you doing? She said, I can go to the club now. I have not the slightest feeling to want to go back into the where the poker machines are. I do play a couple of $1 Keno things with my friend while we're sitting there having our lunch and having a talk. And that was the end of her gambling. And the poor dear had lost 46,000. So anyone that wants to change something, as you said it beautifully, anybody that wants to change something in their life, they can do. And we can guide them. We can't do it for them, but we can guide them while they do it. And, you know, we've got to keep them on the path sometimes, because sometimes they start trying to do it themselves. That's another good example. Some people say to me, you know, you're trying to process them and you suddenly realize they're trying to run the process, do something themselves, you know, and then I often stop them. I say, well, open your eyes. We need to take a little break. I said, do you analyze a lot of things yourself? Oh, I'm doing it all the time. I said, has it ever solved a very serious problem for you? And I've never had a yes, not a real enthusiastic yes. They say, oh, no, not really. I said, well, look, if you're trying to analyze this while we're doing it, it's going to slow this process down and may even stop it working. Please, I'd say with a lot of respect, can you leave the analyzer on my desk while we do this? And you can take it home if you want to after. And that way, and then all of a sudden they start to follow the process and stop trying to do anything else. Because you might have these problems one day, Julie. You get all sorts of people coming. But once you do that, they go through the process in no time. So there you go, okay?
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, and yeah, that's what's amazing too, because you know, you have AA and NA and all these organizations, and they make people totally abstain from whatever, you know, their vice is. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case if you go through just losing that compulsive behavior urge, which is what Mace Energy Method takes care of, goes to the cause, not just treat the symptoms. So that's a big thing. So, you know, somebody doesn't have to, if they consider themselves an alcoholic, they could still go be a social drinker. And, you know, there's even examples of that, right? That's happened with people.
Exactly. And it's just a feeling that's controlling them. It's been around so long that it's controlling them instead of them controlling their life. And once they delete it or discreate it without guidance, they can't do it on their own. John, that's interesting for you to know, for you, that John Mace said, you know, people said, why can't I do this on myself? And John Mace used to say to us an answer, I know what you're saying, but I've never even been silly enough to try. It's like, he said, who'll be doing the processing, you or an identity? so people, eh?
Yeah, I was just saying, right? And this uses our intuition more than our intellect. You know, that's something that humans have gotten so far away from. You know, we're intuitive beings, and we can get so much more if we live through our intuition than we can our intellect, and that's not the way our world works. So that the energy method uses your imagination, your intuition, and even your empathy. So these are really huge things, you know, that part of our human nature. It's a paradigm shift. You know, Larry's bringing out to help people with so-called mental illness, you have to treat it from an energetic perspective and not from a chemical perspective. And that's a paradigm shift. And, you know, it looks like, you know, this is where we're going with all this. So that's pretty cool, pretty awesome.
Oh, no, wonderful. That's exactly right. And, you know, and people that, you know, it's like they create the feelings and then they dramatize them and the negative ones. And they just need a little bit of help and a bit of guidance to hold them on the track. You know, I've had some people that were like, as I said, they were having a little trouble following the process. And in the early days, I remember this. And so then I often tell them to stop. I said, look, imagine you were lost in the bush and you had no idea how to get out. And I come along and it's in the middle of the night, it's very dark. And I said, look, I know the way out. Take my hand, but follow me. Don't step sideways or you might fall off the side of the cliff. I know exactly the way to get out. So that's what I tell them. You've got to follow me very closely. I'm going to guide you while you do it, but you've got to follow me close. That was to stop them trying to think about other things while they were doing the process. I don't know if that's valuable to you, but it was to me at the time.
Yeah, it is, because so many people just get stuck in the, trying to solve everything with their intellect. And we all know when you let that go, that's when your solutions come, and all the great, inventors and philosophers out there, tell you, it comes to you when you don't try to force it out. It's almost a resistance thing too. And that's the thing about these, negative identities that we create. The more we use them, the stronger they get. Just like with positive identity, somebody who's really good at a sport, they get in that flow. There's no thought going into it, it just takes over. It's over the job for that person and does it all. And the same thing happens with these negative identities often, is they just take over, and they can get so extreme that people become to where they have to be Jerry Marzinski's client because, they're schizophrenic. So, we all have this to a degree, and it depends on how rampant they can get going. And, it's just amazing that it can do so much. And when Jerry came out and said, wow, all the other conditions, so-called, anxiety, depression, he's like, oh, those are easy peasy. I've heard him say that. Those are easy peasy with Mace Energy Method. He's like, even with schizophrenia, unless they're really extreme. So that just blows my mind. He's doing a lot of recent interviews and saying this, and I know he's practicing it now. I know he's booked up till next March 2025. So it's just, I'm so glad really getting out there now.
Yep. But now that's true. It's like it's like people don't realize that how they can be free so quickly. I like to use another example too. What's the Mace Method doing? There's an old saying, find the truth and that truth will set you free. And I think that's a wonderful old analogy for the Mace Method. You're finding out the truth about things, like disregarding, like the feelings is not the truth. It's something you've accidentally created and sort of, and resisted it because you don't like the feeling, and then it just stays there. And but once you find the truth about things and step out of it, well, you're back in charge. And it's like getting people in charge of their life is just, to me, was the best fun I've had in my life.
No doubt. And, it's interesting because before Jerry discovered Mace Energy Method, he was the thing that they would use with schizophrenics is when they heard voices to say, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. So it's the same thing about finding the truth, like you said.
Yep.
And then you have the truth, and then not only have you found the truth, but you found a way to just get you back to the real you and deal with these things. And no matter how much control these negative entities have taken over you, you can get rid of them in the blink of an eye, literally. It's crazy, no matter how long you've been there.
Yep. And no, it's like, and that's why I thoroughly enjoyed doing the children, and doing the children, because they just generally 1 or 2 or 3 feelings is all you ever have to handle on anyone young. That's all I've ever had to do. And I've had teachers call me back. There was a little boy called Luke. I'll never forget him. Yeah. And he was at the Steiner School, and the teacher called me back. She said, I've got no idea what you did to that boy. And what I did was run about 3 feelings, by the way, and run his process it with the Mace Method. And she said, he was absolutely the worst student I'd ever had in my life. And he's now turned into the best. If anybody in his class in my class is being naughty, they have to sit next to Luke and try to be the same as him. And then and that's what I do with them. They got to sit with him. He said they got to copy him, and then they turn into good kids. So she thanked me very much, the teacher. But
yeah, no. Sure. He went to become the role model for everyone.
Yeah. Well,
so
he was just being himself, being his true self. And that's what happens to kids when they've got feelings. And go on.
According to Mace Energy Method, what is the characteristics of our true self?
Yeah. Well, it's all our potential. We've all got potential. And the negative identities and feelings collapses that potential. So really what you're doing is getting back all your, I call it your God-given gift and abilities that you've got, and you just start using them and everything starts to go right for you. You're not creating problems, you're creating love and fun and happiness and that sort of thing. And that's what you get back from people.
Right. You don't have all that friction of those negative identities playing out all the time that you have to work against, just like you said with the whole procrastination kind of thing. You got all that extra energy. So you're freed up and your mind is freed up too, and you can tap back into your intuition more, just become more of that full body, being that you are, instead of just being, all, intellect and logic out there trying to navigate, so amazing.
Exactly. Your full potential. I believe we've all got a gift that we've got. All of us are very good at something. And if you follow that and use that, and you share that with everyone, and they share theirs with you, it's not a bad world to live in.
Right. And that's so many people that have a Mace Energy Method session want to become practitioners, correct?
Yeah, well, that happened to me from the other process that I did early on. I don't know why, but I'd like to. I keep thinking of some of the amazing things that I've seen. I had a very good friend, and we finished up training this lady way back 20 years ago, probably. But she had a husband who was quite a bully, and he was always, talking to her rough. And she was a lovely, easygoing person. What would I say? Almost too nice. She needed to. Anyway, I do a communication course, and you train people to keep their attention off themselves and on somebody else, and don't no matter what happens to them. See, if somebody upsets you in an argument, your attention's gone on to you, and then you're weak. But when you keep your attention on them, they get attention, and they're taught to, when they say things, to have a lot of intention, like to make sure that when you say something, it goes from you right to the other person until you see it land. And don't say, hello, how are you, and talk to the floor, sort of thing. Anyway, this lady was lovely, and her and her husband, he'd been bullying her, and they were about ready to divorce. They had quite a big farm, and she was a mad horse lady, and a very nice person. Anyway, I got her coached on having a lot of intention when she said things. That doesn't mean yelling or screaming. It just means saying it and meaning it, like, and spiritually getting it from you to the other person. So the next morning, after she went home, the husband was being quite bully, and they were talking about they were going to divorce that. And he said to her, when are you going to give me the key to this property? She had a key to get in and out of the house. They hadn't been together for a year or two, just living there. And she said, the moment you give me half the money, and not a second before. And that was many, many years ago, at least 10 or 12, maybe a bit more. They're very happily married, and they've been together ever since without any problems. And I call what happened to her was, like, he was being the bully and she was being down here, and we put a bit of balance back into the relationship. And that's all that did. And she learned to speak up for herself, and she'd never be unfair or nasty or anything, but she got her ideas over properly from then on. And so it's so good. And she finished up training as a Mace practitioner. I think she also does something else too. I can't remember it now. She's got some body thing she does that she's exceptionally good at. But however, I love thinking about all those people, and that, like, that. So the Mace method to me is a big life changer for people. Put them back in charge of their own life, not make them powerful to stand over other people or do anything, just to stand their ground and hold their beingness and just be themselves. Okay.
Right. And that was a good example of a relationship repair scenario where one person has the Mace Energy Method and it fit the relationship, just because of the way her perspective and attitude toward demeanor, etc., were in the relationship. Look like you froze up here. There you come back. There you are. So yeah, just phenomenal, totally phenomenal. I
Yep,
think the
yep,
wave is catching that, and Jerry just seems to be out there. Jerry, it's always an aside in Jerry's interview. I get Jerry and Cherie and talk to them just about Mace Energy Method. But yeah,
yep.
it's just so amazing. And I insist to Cherie, you guys have been knowing about this and being able to see so many results that I'm sure you've just been wanting to get it out to more and more people, and I've just steadily been doing that. So thank you for your persistence and your perseverance with that. I'm sure y'all been so motivated by the results that it really was just effortless, kind of perpetual thing.
No, no, I've got an example. When I do a good session, it's almost like I've just had a session myself. When somebody's
Right.
happy by doing that, that seems to do something good to me. It's almost like I've just had a session, and that's probably why I've enjoyed it so much and that sort of thing. And no, it's been a great trip and a lot of fun. And you will when you get going and do your processing, I think you'll have the same experiences, I'm sure, and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I'm so excited. I'm so looking forward to it. I'm going into section 5 now.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
yeah, I've been through it pretty good, and it's very the training is very detailed. You really get into the concepts, and it's layered, but it's good. You get a good understanding of how it all works. But then it's so simple, the process is, and it's just so amazing how you're able to because in the Mace Energy Method, we've all heard of body, spirit, and mind, but Mace Energy Method says, we're body, spirit, and mind, but we also have our identities that make a person. So
Yeah.
we have to bring in our spirit to help deal with things that our person has brought into this material realm. And that's what's so powerful. Mace Energy Method is tapped into a way to do that simply, very simply.
Yeah, exactly. See, the other thing, as you said, we've got negative identities. We've also got positive identities. So some training that we do, we're creating a positive identity. And of course, we've got lots of them. Like I told people, my best simple analogy is, but the first time you try to drive a car, you're all nervous. Where's the gear stick? Where's this and where's that? And you're all nervous. But after you get your license, you've had it a couple of years, you're driving along, listening to the radio, talking to your friend, watching the traffic, and it's all automatic. Anything happens, your foot goes on the brake without hardly thinking. So training and learning things is creating positive identities. So anything you learn, like you're learning to be a Mace practitioner, that's like a positive identity. And people need to realize and recognize they've got quite a few of those as well. And everything we do, people that do things, they do them almost on automatic, but they've trained to do it, and the identity just does it. They do it for them and that sort of thing. But it's the spirit that's running the whole show. And the more good and whole that is, the better the positive identities, in my opinion. Okay.
Right. And if we didn't create these identities, positive or negative, then we wouldn't be able to effortlessly drive a car. We'd have to be driving like we're a first-time driver every time. So these are survival mechanisms to have identities while we're in this field ground. But then, we unknowingly create these negative identities and these upsets. And I think, from what I'm just thinking, like sometimes so early, young in life, they have a trauma that's totally blacked out. They don't remember. But later, they'll have a trauma, and that might be the trauma that they can get to in a Mace Energy Method. And it might not be the very, very first trauma, but it'll still get to that ruin and still even eliminate that.
Yep. Hello, what happened? Hello? Something's happened, my dear. Oh, that's better. I don't know why my big picture just took over the whole screen and you went. Are you there now? Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can now. I couldn't for a moment or two.
Yeah, technical difficulties. But anyway, I was just thinking that, sometimes really early trauma, like if something happens before people don't know until they're like 5 years old, right? So
Yep.
this energy method might not go back to that trauma, but you'll go back to one where that ruin is, that core resisted feeling, even though it wasn't the very, very first trauma. And even though you don't go all the way back there, you can still eliminate all the effects.
Absolutely. Yeah, when you handle somebody's ruin, you're handling all the upsets to do with that have come after that. They've all gone. There may be
And
a few
even
little
ones
feelings
before,
to handle.
and even
Pardon?
possibly upset before that one that they go back to. You could even be handling those because
Yep.
the same feeling. So that's pretty magic, because a lot of times, with the regression therapies, they always try to get to that exact one, that very first one. Might even be in another lifetime, so they use all these hypnosis and stuff like that to try to pinpoint that, but that isn't even needed. You just need that feeling that came out of it, because that feeling's been propagating through other upsets all this time. So you just got to find one that the spirit will zoom in on when prompted and handle it there. And that's just so cool.
Yeah, yes, that's right. You just have to handle, and listen to the person. I never try to tell the person what they should handle. If you listen to them, they'll tell you, and then you can ask the right question, and you'll get the right. That's what I found works best for me, and that sort of thing. So yeah, very
right,
good.
we just have to trust that our spirit knows where to guide us to do that. Our intuition, again, tap into that and let intuition lead us there, and it'll usually lead us to the right place. And if not, we'll fish it out some other way.
Yeah. Well, really speaking, when you're asking the original question, when you learn to do your process, the one that gets very deep, and in lots of cases it probably is the original one, when you ask that question, you're purposely triggering them. The question's very, very good. And as I said, many years ago, early on, I went and did a lecture to about 30 or 40 ladies at a meeting one morning, and I talked about the question that we use to find their upset, because I was very new and very inexperienced at that time, but we were getting good results. When the meeting finished, there was about 5 ladies crying, and they all walked out in a heap, and I couldn't do a thing about it. And I've never felt so guilty in my whole life. I triggered them all, telling them too much. So I'm very careful what I say these days. I'm not hiding it. I'm just looking after the people. Okay.
Right. So it just shows how powerful the question is. And
I know yeah.
And
so
John Mace just really tapped into, something big here, and he put a lot of his intuition and his intellect into discovering all this. And it's just amazing, and he wasn't so corrupted by academia and all their dogmatism about, how they think things work, and, the brain, and, chemical imbalances and all these kinds of things. So yeah, just so great to have, and so refreshing to have something so simple and so effective.
Yeah, well, that's what he used to say. Anything truly powerful is truly simple. Life's not complicated, he used to say. But yeah, so I was thinking of something else I wanted to talk to you about. It's gone again. This old memory of mine lets me down occasionally. But yeah, what was that now? I was going to bring up something about, well, John Mace anyway. Yeah, so I really miss him, and I'm so thrilled that he should be hearing what's going on these days. And that's why I like to keep helping if I can, because I know what his goal was, and he just wanted to help people. He never set out to try to make himself a millionaire or anything. His idea was just to help people, and that he well and truly did. He was very good too. I came up with a few things and he said, oh, great. And then he'd add to it, and then it'd become part of the process. And he said, I can't think of every blooming thing. He actually used to swear another word when he'd say that to me. I can't think of anything that comes up, you've got to tell us. And he encouraged everyone to do that. If they come up with any idea, he wanted to hear about it, you know, and put it all together. So he was very good, very, very good about all that.
Right. That says a lot. He wasn't all trying to, you know, have a claim to fame. You know, it's all his, and yeah, all the ego. Like so many people get into the whole ego of it. He just wants to get it out there and help it any way it can be improved upon. He wants to hear about it and investigate it. And I know that you and Cherie are still real cautious about any kind of, you know, changes or anything like that, but occasionally you'll see something and make some tweaks. But yeah, it sounds like it's real well defined at this point. I mean,
like exactly.
You've had just hundreds and hundreds of people that you've helped just by yourself, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yep, I know. And you know, that time when he went to the university and they said to him, that's not possible. What, you can't do that, what you say you do. And he said, prove I'm wrong. You know, at that time, we'd probably gone a couple of years. We'd done a couple of years. So all the people that I'd handled with depression, you know, all the people. So I started ringing people from 6 months and a year before, and to find out, they all said the depression will just come back. I can honestly tell you, I called probably 20 or 30 or maybe a bit more. And that's how I got the story about that girl that went, that's how I really got that story about the girl that went down to visit her mother at Christmas and never had a fight. But I didn't find anyone that said the depression. They said, no, it's gone. It's never come back, you know. But like getting other people to believe that they've been doing this, you know. And as John said, talking about things has no therapeutic effect whatsoever, no permanent therapeutic effect. And that's a very important point too, that get people to talk. Like I've had clients and I told them, now we don't need to know anything about your personal business or any details about any upset or trauma. And I said that to a young lady one day and she just broke into tears. And I thought, oh, by Jove, what have I done? I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, what's the problem? She said, no, I'm so happy. I've been going to a psychiatrist for over a year, every Friday for nearly a year. And I've told the same story every time. I'm so happy. The tears were happy tears. I'm so happy I don't have to tell the story again. And I've had literally dozens of people that have been having a session every week for a couple of months or something like that. And one session's fixed them up. So I've got a lot of good memories, Julia.
That's awesome. And, you know, just reliving the trauma that can trigger you and then create another upset and create more negative identity. So this whole psychotherapy where you talk it through is just a way to make things worse for a lot of people. And the results show that out in the world. You know, mental health is not improving by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, but Mace Energy Method, these, you know, is getting the results. So anyone that has any kind of anything you don't like about yourself and you want to change, well, Mace Energy Method. And it's so economical too. You know, you consider what people spend and the energy they put into trying to heal other ways, their time, their money, sometimes their health, because they end up getting on medications that have all these negative side effects, you know. Here you can spend $200 or $300 in a couple of hours and be free. That's phenomenal.
Yep, exactly. In the old days, they're not doing that. In the old days, like I have people call up. I used to write articles in a little magazine that promoted Tai Chi and Qigong and all those different things. I used to write an article. There was four of those come out a year. Twice a year I'd write an article and I had my ad in there. And people would ring up about it and they'd say, oh, are you sure this works? And I used to say to them, look, if you're not happy with the session, there'll be no charge. Oh, you're so confident I'm coming. That would stop people that would make people make their mind up to come and have a session, and instead of having to spend 20 or 30 minutes convincing them that it'll work, because why are they going to believe you? It was so new at the time. So I'd say, well, if you're not happy, there'll be no charge and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's funny how all these things happen.
Right.
Big memories.
And
Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And like I said, just like that some people have sessions and then want to become a practitioner. I mean, that's what happened with Cherie. That right there says a lot. And then Gary Marzinski coming out and telling you it works for every illness out there. And then you got your compulsion, you got your motivation in life. It just frees you up, like you said, to you have all this energy now to be who you really are and do what you really love and share your gifts and help others.
Yeah, exactly. And that sort of thing. You may have to, if you're going to use this as a podcast, you may have to delete this part. You can do that, can't you? If I tell you a little story.
I'm not very good at editing, but I can end it and then you can tell me.
No.
But I'm not good at editing.
Something about John Mace, that was all. I absolutely love the guy from head to toe, he was special. Yeah, we'll end it and I'll tell you a little story about him just for fun. You'll appreciate it, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, all right, everyone out there. This is John Avery, and you can find him on the information about him. I think you're still listed on the Causism Institute because he's still available to answer questions. He mostly just helps people in training now, but he came and had this conversation here. And yeah, I mean, this is just amazing information and amazing testimony to the effects of Mace Energy Method. So thank you all out there for listening, and I hope you have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Remember to stay focused on what you want and help others if you can. Ciao, ciao.
And thank you, Julia, for letting me share some very happy times.